This interview is brought to you in association with Rabobank.
Hello and welcome to this Rural Delivery online interview. I'm Roger Bourne. Today I'm speaking with Andrew Hoggard, Dairy Industry Group Chairperson, Federated Farmers. One of Andrew's policy responsibilities is employment, and that's what we're talking about today. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Roger.
Andrew, Feds and Rabobank have been teaming up for a few years now to do a report on what remuneration looks like in the agriculture sector. You've just completed the 2014-15 report. What is this report about? What's it trying to achieve?
So the idea behind the report is basically to give farmers a snapshot as to what's actually happening around salaries. I often get asked by farmers, what's sort of a fair rate that they should be paying their staff. In small business, it's kind of hard to know. You don't have that much market intelligence, so it's hard to work out what is a competitive salary. So by providing this report, farmers are able to see what others are paying, what sort of the industry averages, and then they're able to structure their packages accordingly. And it also provides good information for the industry so that we have got a good understanding of what's actually happening in the industry. We certainly do get at times lots of people making comments about what they believe life is like for farm workers, and it gives us actual facts and information that we can use in those discussions.
All right, well, surveys are only as good as the numbers. How many people do you get responding to this? How many positions does it cover? How accurate do you feel it is?
We get roughly around about 1,000 or more each year. We had 1,800 employees covered for the dairy industry, 971 in sheep and beef, and 154 in grains. So it's a fairly reasonable snapshot of what's happening in each industry.
Okay, and what sort of questions are you asking here? You're digging into salary. This is a remuneration summary. Does it stretch further than that? Does it look at the total employment package, whether people are getting vehicles or housing and the like?
Yeah. So we cover, we ask a whole range of questions so we can truly understand what the actual total package that someone is being offered. And a lot of times in farming, there's a lot of things that, be it accommodation or extra perks and benefits that are given to staff that if you just ask what the actual cash salary is, it doesn't really represent what the employee is truly getting. So we sort of ask a lot of questions to try and dig out, what's the actual total value package that staff are getting on farms.
Okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit. Where's the lucrative place to be in the sector?
Obviously, in each sector, it's a lot of commonality between the levels in each sector. So whatever your chosen sector is, obviously, as you move up the hierarchy of jobs, there are some pretty good offers, at the top of dairy for operations manager. The average there was 71,000. Sheep and beef, the farm manager in sheep and beef is on around 60,000, and 63,000 in the grain sector for a farm manager. And all of the standard positions are all around that in the mid-40s generally. So there's, as you move up the hierarchy, there's more and higher salaries, but there's not too much disparity between the sectors in that regard.
No, that's interesting. And overall, there's been a little bit of sort of gentle creep in these salaries in the low percentage point sort of mark. Is that what you'd expect to see?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised around some of the increases in dairy, obviously because we've had a pretty rough year in the dairy sector. And so the natural assumption would be that there wouldn't have been rises in all of the categories, but then obviously, at the time when people were signing up contracts for the coming season and negotiating packages for this coming season, we were still on an $8.40 payout. So that probably explains why there have been increases. So one might expect next season there possibly won't be the same increases in that regard.
When you look at these numbers, do you do any work then to benchmark them, I guess, against alternative employers? It's a competitive labour market in New Zealand, particularly for the sort of people that you might need in a rural environment. Do you believe that these salaries are competitive and that they're bringing the right people into the sector?
I believe they are competitive, and I think I'm not too sure on what other industries are offering, and I think that's somewhere where I'd be quite keen to take this survey so that farmers can see what a builder's apprentice earns, or a plumber's apprentice, and an office manager in town might earn for a similar-sized enterprise, so that we can see, how competitive our salaries are with other professions, because it's not just a case of offering a bit more than the next dairy farmer or sheep and beef farmer, but it's about attracting people to our industry. So we do need to make sure the salaries we offer are competitive against other options that people can take.
Because I do notice that, 38% of employers in this survey said, look, it's not at all easy or not very easy to find the employees that they need. Although, conversely, actually, there's another group about the same size who said it is easy. So I wonder if that's something to do with what they're offering or where they are or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think geography does play a big role in it at times. And certainly, when I've advertised for staff, I do get a number from some of the colder climates of New Zealand and ask them why they're wanting to shift on, and they usually refer to the weather. So that, some geographies do find it tougher, and there's obviously a lesser pool of people that are available. So that is part of it, for sure.
Good level of satisfaction, though. I mean, in most cases, you're sort of talking about employers high 70s, nearly 80% are pretty satisfied with the people they've got, the work they're doing.
Yeah, and that's good, and I think that's improving over time as well. So it's showing that, I think farmers are improving in the HR side of the business. There's still a lot of more work to do, but overall, I'm seeing pretty positive trends in all of these numbers.
Yeah. Now, and lots of Kiwis still out there. Now, there's a lot of talk about foreign labour coming into the industry, but across the board, it looks pretty high here. The numbers I've got in front of me are over 90% sheep and beef, grains about 84, drops down a wee bit for dairy, about 77, probably reflecting the labour demand there. Again, is that a picture that you think backs up the image people have off farm?
Yep. And although, probably some of our detractors will be thinking that only foreign staff work on dairy farms, but this is showing that herd managers at 74%, assistant herd managers 69%, from the nearly 80s for the dairy farm assistants, and then for your farm managers and operation managers in dairy, it's up in the high 80s, 90s. So there's still a good number of Kiwis, well, the overwhelming majority that are employed on dairy farms are New Zealanders and Kiwi citizens. So
another big surprise. Yeah. Sorry, look, another big surprise here. Now, the number of hours being worked. Now, maybe we're talking to the 1,000 best employers here, but we've got somewhere ranging between the around the mid 40s, let's say 46 or so hours a week for dairy. That's not the message that I think that a lot of people are picking up off farm.
No, and so what we've done this year is actually changed the question we've asked. In the past, the question we've asked is, what is your average weekly workload on farm, or how many hours on average would these employees work? And of course, I think that probably a lot of farm, it's pretty hard to sort of judge across the year what the average would be. So what we've done is we've split it up into this sort of seasonal basis and asked, what is the average over winter, what is the average in spring, summer, autumn, and so people have broken it down a bit more, and then we've sort of worked out the averages from there, and we've got a bit more of an accurate picture of what we think that truly average weekly hour workload is. And obviously with more people, another thing that's shown is that we are getting more and more people using timesheets to record hours. So obviously they'll be have access to much more correct data than what they had in the past. So yeah, it's painting a more accurate picture, I think, of what the hours worked in. I think everyone sort of they pick the middle of calving as often the average weekly workload on a farm, whereas that's actually probably the highest point of the year, and it's probably a bad time to use to give a truly accurate description of the of the job over the entire year. Yes, that's one extreme, but it is an extreme.
Does the survey give you any indication of the spread across, full-time employees, part-time employees, casual staff, that sort of thing?
Yep. So it does show, we do have some information there on those that are casual and those that are employed on a full-time basis.
I'm interested actually as well in this number around, quite a large percentage have not been with their current employer for very long, under a year, 37 or so percent. And across the board, it looks like most people have the employees maybe 2 or 3 years. My feeling would be that that's probably very much in line with the modern way that people like to work. They stay somewhere for a few years, move on, move up. They might move house, move district, what have you, try something new. Are those sort of numbers that you'd expect to see there?
Yeah, I would expect that. I mean, the reality is on most farms, they're a small business. Depending on the level of the owner's input, you'll have it structured in such a way that you'll have, a number of specific roles on farms. So if you're only employing 2 people and you're the owner-operator, you possibly will only need, one assistant herd manager and one dairy farm assistant. So the reality is, in 2 to 3 years, a person should be able to master that role and then be in a position to move on to the next role. So if you only offer a certain role, you've got to expect after 2 or 3 years, that person will be moving on to another farm where they can take the next role up. So unless you're in a position where you're able to offer roles all the way through, you're not really going to have people stay with you for that often if they're the sort of person that wants to progress through the industry and, arrive at farm ownership. There are some people who will be happy in a role and be happy to stay there, but, I've found certainly most employees of mine are quite keen to move up through the roles and get to farm management, farm ownership on their own. So, I genuinely expect people to be with me for 2 to 3 seasons and then moving on to another farm for new opportunities.
Yeah, okay. Look, Andrew, we're running out of time here, but before I go, there's people are going to have their own opportunity to dig into this report, but if you're a farm employer, what would you advise other people to look at it here and think about when they're thinking about their own business, how they manage their own employee situation, and what their role is, I guess, as part of a combined sector in making sure that these numbers continue to, hopefully, to grow, that satisfaction remains high, that the right people are in the sector. What sort of actions do you want people to take after reading this report?
I think it just provides farmers with a good indication as to what is a competitive salary that they need to be paying to attract staff. So, look at it, understand what the numbers are and what sort of the various, hours and stuff that other people in the industry are expecting their staff to do. And, it's just a way of helping you to position yourself in the employment market to be able to attract the staff that you need and run your farm to the best of its ability.
That sounds pretty sensible to me. Look, Andrew, thank you very much for your time this morning. We greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
This interview was brought to you in association with Rabobank.